over to you for the
Yeah.
case study, Alvaro.
Okay, so one of the first principles was to be mindful and stay focused. So really like put your mind to what you're doing, really stay focused and not get like distracted. Always have a North Star, a strategy that's guiding you throughout the whole process. So this was another important principle that taught me to go through it. Always validate before you build. So actually realize what you're really first going to build. So you actually really validate, okay, what is it for? What is it for? The next one is always like prioritize, like, is it a painkiller or is it a vitamin? So how acute the problem is. And I think this is something that I really think will stay with me for a while. Product is constantly growing organism, so product is constantly evolving, it's dynamic, it's changing. This is something that's very, very important to know. And of course, the core process of experiment, analyze, and then decide. So experiment, look at the results, and then decide how to go forward. So those are kind of the first principles. Moving on.
It's a really confusing feature.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So, so processes, I think the process was fairly straightforward, but also very, very engaging as a whole. During the process, I think for me, it was more about understanding my niche and understand what their core issue was. And in the case, it was anxiety. Initially, I began with looking at being overwhelmed, but I realized, okay, anxiety and being uncertainty was the core issue around that. Then coming to actually ideating around these issues and turning issues into opportunities. So this was kind of the process that was really important, to be able to see what could be an opportunity in what my core audience described as their problem. Then to validate this proposition, to actually go forward, craft an MVO, and to actually see if this would be a compelling offer just from a statement point of view. And this was very interesting because copywriting by itself, I never thought was a big part of product, but then I realized, okay, it's very, very important to have a compelling statement and really be able to engage at first sight, literally by 2 sentences that can actually make someone click on something. So that was quite a nice part of the process. Experiment, see how to segment your audience. So this was also a very important part of the process. Another important part of learning was to actually see what's their current state and how you can iterate further the same product to bring it to a next version, and then see what learnings you have along the way that you can actually then take it further to reach a product market fit, or even start the product market fit engine. So these were some of the key points I think that were important. And of course, at the end, also invest long-term, see what can be future parts of a roadmap. How could you improve core usability issues? So these were all some of my important things I did in the process. Yeah. So initially coming to my first problem statement, this was initially in the beginning where I started, we believe that young tech executives are currently overwhelmed by anxiety and uncertainty, and their ideal situation is to feel calm, confident, and control of their lives. So this was what I initially took up as a problem statement, and decided to build hypotheses from there and see how we could further improve the product from there. So my first hypothesis was that the young tech executives are feeling overwhelmed and anxious due to uncertainty, and to really validate if this is an acute problem among themselves. So this was something that, as from a hypothesis point of view, I didn't really know. So I really wanted to do validation, to which I had the OKRs where I did 9 user interviews through people whom I reached out to LinkedIn, Facebook, and then also quantifying their feedback. So this was part of and some of the very important learnings here were actually getting out of my comfort zone and actually really reaching out to people, which I hadn't done before. So this was quite nice to do, and really fulfilling to see that I was making progress on that front. Yes, this was some screenshots here of how the user interviews were carried out and some of the results from the user interviews. So initial statement was find personalized one-to-one support within minutes. So this was really looking at how you could help these people get support very immediate and quickly. Some of the really interesting, I think, examples where people really said oh, I would have never thought this was a problem. So they would never realize how big this problem was until you really spoke about it. So it was quite engaging to speak to people and really see how they felt about this issue by themselves.
Sorry, you mean on that, just out of interest,
Yeah.
they weren't clear themselves, right? So the more they sort of talked about it, the more it.
Yeah, the more it came out. Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, the thing is, some of them really didn't realize that how big of a problem it was and how much of it was really impacting their lives. So that was quite some, I think, interesting learnings around the topic. That's some of them really had a spliff, like what you say, spliff, no, uh, split of the tongue, right? Yeah.
Oh, I know what you mean. Yeah, with like
Yeah,
an epiphany.
slip of the tongue. So then they're, oh, actually I said that, I didn't know that was in the subconscious, right? So this was a big part of really unearthing the thoughts that these people were having and understanding, like, okay, whether they really consider that a problem until they really said, oh, actually it's a problem for me. Yeah, so that was part of the user interviews. So then I moved on further to actually see, and a lot of people were really looking for personalized one-to-one kind of support, where my second hypothesis comes to saying, we help busy working professionals find quick, personalized, and one-to-one support anytime, anywhere. And this was really going more towards the direction of saying, hey, this has to be personalized, this has to be one-to-one. That's where the core value lies in, where really people can connect to someone and they can really start in it like very rapidly, almost like gaining value. Yeah, so from there, I built a really simple landing page with a core MVO and 3 to 4 additional statements. A small type form which had about 30% survey completion, which was quite fulfilling to see. And at the end, of course, validating the MVO as a foundation for the product vision and strategy going forward. So this was the second hypothesis. And from there, you can see a basic type form that was built out, which had about 6 to 8 questions. And from there, also very simple bubble prototype where I could have my MVO and see how many people were really interested in signing up or getting more info about this. One interesting learning from here was really integrating mixed panel and being able to really see how events were events were being loaded onto the website, to also see how people were really engaging with it and what parts of the MVO needed further iteration. So this was also kind of an iterative process where I then further reiterated on the MVO statement itself before going forward. Yeah, so and then in terms of it, I really like cut it down to something very, very basic. In the end, it was more about authentic and personal support. So I know there's a lot of options out there in the market, and I really focused on taking something that was already existing, but reimagining what authentic and personal support could be. So this was kind of the validated product vision that I settled in for. The next hypothesis, that was number 3, was to understand and validate that a specific solution resonates with our niche. So this was done initially doing a very basic Figma prototype, which I started with the customer journey map, which I went through the emotional journey of a user, but also seeing what would be customer actions that a customer would take in this situation. So actually mapping out the whole point of from where the customer really feels this kind of helplessness or really looking for support, to actually having this moment of that he has had value, and this aha moment of saying, oh wow, that actually was something that I benefited from. So actually this was this step where we went through the whole process and actually mapped out the journey to actually come up with a clickable prototype and actually do an A/B testing to see if that would really work through. Any questions so far, Henry? Or?
No, that was a good thing. It's all clear. Okay. I'm just writing some notes.
Okay. Yeah. So from there, I built a very simple wireframe diagram that was done in Miro to map out the customer journey map that you see on the lower side, and also the emotional journey that was very important to see how the customer would actually feel at different points of the journey, and from there to actually be able to build a more realistic prototype in Figma that I did as part of the next step. You'll see that in a moment. I think key learnings here were actually to be able to really strip down every screen to just one action, or maybe in some cases 2, where it would really derive value. Like, for example, just for a user to be able to choose what they felt at that time, like a multi-select versus, or just, for example, see a list of advisors where they could be able to choose from. And I think this was a nice process of being able to see a part to a whole of the whole product, where I could actually see, okay, how a smaller screen would fit in the bigger picture of the whole product as a whole. So this were some important learnings. And of course, the customer journey map, I think you also helped me a lot there to like kind of iterate further and really strip down and not be too imposing on a user, to actually make it very easy for them to have a choice instead of giving them too much choices. Yeah, and then coming to the last one, and that's kind of the stage where I am in currently, like building further on the prototype. So I think the core value actually of a product that I'm trying to build is for people to seamlessly find authentic support, and that the customers really value that they would seamlessly find something that someone could really help them by giving them advice, or even giving them a small resource to kind of help them get to the current state they're feeling through, to come to a much better state that's feeling much more calm, confident, and relaxed. So for this, I went through Figma, built a prototype. Currently, I'm doing the onboarding of beta testers. So this is where I've reached out to people on LinkedIn. And yeah, it's currently the state that I'm currently working on. So if you see here, yeah, this is what kind of came to a very basic prototype here from Figma, to actually come to understand, okay, the first screen is more about them just taking a very simple assessment. And through this assessment, you would really understand, is this something that they really require, or are they really even engaging in an assessment? And for me, this was the first validation to say, okay, does this actually, do people actually go to the next step? Do they actually tell you what are they really feeling? And so this would be the 4 steps that you see. One would be first starting the assessment, then choosing a category of that would be kind of making them feel anxious, and then kind of choosing a goal from there that would actually be their goal once they have the ideal situation. And the intermediate would be how would we help them? That would be through an expert or through some advice. So this is kind of the prototype that I have currently built and will validate. I'm currently in the process of validating with some early testers. So the product market fit engine, this is where I will do in the next weeks, identify a high experience customer. Once I get to feedback to my existing user testers, also be able to segment them, and also come and try to understand who would be these customers who would be very disappointed if the product didn't exist, right? So this is something as part of the product market fit engine, which I'm going to experiment in the next weeks going forward. Of course, also running some product market fit scores to see how much value this would bring to them, and how can I iterate going further with this prototype. In terms of jobs to be done, I think in terms of looking at the long-term perspective of what this product can be and what could be relevant, not to say features, but relevant value that this customers could have on this product, is that, for example, there could be like pre-booking sessions that based on their calendar. They could also, for example, be able to choose what kind of experiences they want. So these are some of the jobs to be done framework that I also try to already list out now, that can be part of the roadmap going forward. And then depending on how feedback comes in, how I further iterate on this topic, I would then be able to build further from here. Yeah, awesome. And that's the last slide.
Awesome. No, really, really nice. Well under time as well, which is good. Yeah, presentations, by the way, TED, I think they cap everything to 15 minutes max, because people just can't concentrate after. So it's a good practice to have. Awesome. I'm going to go over we've got 10 minutes as well, which is great. I'll quickly go through just bullet points on the case study, and then general thoughts from the program, and sort of we can talk about what the next steps would be.
Yeah.
Good. So starting with principles, great. I like that you made these your own. The mindfulness, the North Star. I think these are really important things for you as well. Actually, that I'll come on to later. I think it's actually good. Yeah. It's really nice to see that you specified these 2 things. I'll talk about why later. On the process, you name dropped the MBA, and I was like, oh no, he's not going to describe. And then you gave really good explanation of what it is. Yeah. It's about value and not building solutions too quickly. That was good. Nice learnings along the way that you sort of dropped in as well. Like you talked about copywriting and how you had a realization how powerful it is, and gave a good example. So again, imagine if you're pitching this process internally, it's a really it's so important that you illustrate this in a clear, simple way and back it up with examples and stories. So that was great. Hypothesis one, again, good, throughout really good explanation of everything. You explain why we're doing this. That, we're not, I wasn't sure that this is a problem at the moment. And you talk about, going through the process, and you talked about your personal learnings as well, which is nice, and nice, good, reflective, getting out of your comfort zone, for example. Hypothesis two, again, there's a very good flow to this. And the MBA was very strong, actually. Good flow in the fact that everything from the problem flowed into each other. It's like problem one, and then you did this hypothesis, and then you ran these experiments, and then with the results, you went into hypothesis two. So there's a really nice build up and story there. The vision was good. It felt really compelling and aspirational. I can't remember exactly what it was. There was that you added something at the end, rethinking or reimagined.
Reimagined, yeah.
Yeah, I like that. I really like it. I think it's strong. Hypothesis three, again, was very clear. You talked through the CGM and wireframes very clearly. Again, it's not just like, here's some screenshots. It's like, what are these and why are these and why are they important? Hypothesis four, good. You found, I really like that you've not only did you write down a core value, but I can tell that you've got a really strong North Star there. That that's the thing to pursue. So important as a leader, right? Because you can get people going, let's do some other new stuff, and here's a new opportunity, and your role is just to say, no, we're going to stay really focused on that North Star. So I think it's really good that you've had that realization. Prototype looks a lot better, really, really good. There's that game still around, do you emphasize the negative, like the feeling anxious, or do you flip it to a positive? It's just to experiment with, really, because on one side you're building empathy by being honest, on the other it might put people off, but we'll see. If it's an acute problem, they're still going to click through. Product market fit engine. Yeah, the fact you haven't done this yet and you gave a good explanation was strong. In reality, I think you'd have to explain this more. That will come through doing it as well, right? Obviously. So don't worry about that. Yeah. You could, I think, if you're pitching this internally, the idea of saying, we're just listening to the people that said they would be disappointed if it didn't exist. You need to explain why that's the case, and why that's, because it's not actually that obvious. Really about focus, listening to just our core customers, right, where we can deliver lots of value. Obviously, you've got time pressure and you haven't quite got to that stage, and that's completely fine. Yeah. The jobs to be done. I like the ideas. Be careful with the framework. So a good example was I want to measure my progress. That's a good job to be done. The calendar one was a half and half between a concrete user story and a piece of value, because you phrased it as, it shouldn't be as a user, I want a calendar. That's a generic feature. It's, as a user, I want to view upcoming sessions. Yeah, okay. And you sort of mix the two. Small thing, but again, it's so important, the more senior artists try and stay high level and not pass on fixed solutions to people. Because, for example, maybe you don't need a calendar. So, right, if your product team thinks, well, shit, we need to build a calendar and we're going to spend 3 months on it, but Alvaro says it's really important, maybe it's simply just, 3 times, it's here's Monday, 2 to 3 p.m., for example. Yeah. So it's always thinking value and problems rather than specific solution. Small thing, but again, I'm always going to push you with these things. Good. I think, general thoughts. I think actually really for me, it distills down to, I think, one thing to improve and one thing to carry on doing. And I think in terms of thing to improve, I think it's just about more practice. I think you've done really well in the program, and I can tell you've got this sort of entrepreneurial mindset, sort of leadership mindset. And I think that you need to be top. And I think to do that is just keep practicing. So I felt, when we first had the discussions over the solution, it felt a bit weak and lacking focus. It's looking a lot better now, but obviously, I'm not going to be there and the support network's not going to be there next time. That comes down to practice, right? So I think, from my side, I'd say if you want to be a top leader, just keep practicing in the real world. Things like strategy, customer insights, building out the solutions exactly as you're doing right now, right? You're going to continue working with it. I think that's one thing, just to keep pushing, right? Because if you ever want to go into top leadership or start your own business, you've got to be best in the game, because it's hard. And on the other side, I think thing to keep doing, I don't know if you felt this, but I've definitely seen, coming back to the principles at the beginning, I've definitely seen a transformation in you from, at the beginning, I felt you're a bit, I think your thoughts are a bit all over the place, and then you've become much more focused and clear. And that's been reflected actually in the results you've been getting really with the surveys right so far. And I suspect you'll do quite well with the product market fit engine. So I think that's one thing that's really, really powerful. I don't know if you felt that over the program as well.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think it definitely gave me the time to like be on one track. Yeah, that was good.
Yeah, exactly. So I think when we started speaking 2-3 months ago, I think you're balancing a few different things, and it's felt like you've come in really focused. I think you've got, you're using all the right words there, and the core value, North Star. I think that's such a key lesson to take away. I think from my side, the next steps, as I said, is, do the product market fit engine. I think keep iterating it, because I think it's such a good skill on the solution side as well, right? So whilst you've got this opportunity, why not keep iterating, keep building it out? You could look at, building something in Adalo or Bubble, like a real no-code prototype, public app you can launch. And further down the line, it's revisiting the whole process that we've done, right? The strategy stuff, customer insights as well. I think if you keep doing that and keep implementing it at work, then you're definitely on the right path. Sure.
Yeah, I definitely think I will spend some more time after this week and just keep iterating on it. And I mean, maybe I would have to pivot at some point, depending on what feedback I get, right?
That's fine. Again, it's, don't think of the outcome's not important. It's the process and getting more and more repetitions. Because whatever you do, whether it's applying this at work or eventually starting your own thing, or coming as an early stage company, every repetition is going to be really, really valuable. So I think that would be my biggest advice, is just keep doing the process. Yeah. And don't worry about results ultimately. Yeah. Awesome. Well, look, I think then, next steps, let's stay in touch over Slack.
Yeah, sure. Let's
data and things. I'm happy to test, test any solutions.
Yeah, once I get it to a better level, then I will send you also maybe a small link to test it out.
Yeah, awesome. No, I'd love to. Quite interested to see how you develop it as well. Yeah. Having worked in mindfulness myself, it's an interesting industry. Nice one. Excellent. Well, Alvaro, thanks so much for the case study. And looking forward to sort of following your journey as well with this. Yeah, let's stay in touch. And thanks for everything, Henry. It was a great experience.